What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We are back. We took a bye week just like the Lions last week. We probably could have jumped on to do a little Seattle review, maybe take some questions, but my son decided to break his finger in football. So I had another matter to deal with, and it just is what it is. But we're back, and we're going to just jump right into Lions Seahawks review. Scott, my man, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back with you. How are you?
I'm good. I mentioned Lions beat the Seahawks. We got Monday Night Football out of the way. Lions with this big win, they moved to 3-1. They're coming off the bye, but looking at Seattle, they beat them 42-29. And I know this is old news for most people, but again, we're just kind of putting that bow on it. But what really stood out in this game, there was so much offensively. I think that's probably where we're going to focus on the most, because putting up 42 points, it's a season high for Detroit. Jared Goff went 18 for 18, a historic 18 straight completions. He had more touchdown catches than he did incompletions in this game. He caught a touchdown pass. So much stuff that really stands out in this one. But for you, what really stood out?
So obviously, their efficiency was ridiculous. They have. It seems like they've taken the Tampa Bay game, and how inefficient they were in that game to heart. There's a couple of things that stand out. The Goff catch is silly. Some of these things that they're doing, like the lateral to Gibbs and the Goff catch, is stuff I think we'll see again, or variants of these things. So it's good to put that kind of stuff on film. Whatever formation they're in, the sweeps that go a certain way, that reverses, whatever it is, that kind of a play. I mean, it's fun and all that stuff, but there's a method to what they're doing there. So that play stood out as, it was a fun play to look at. It was a great throw. It was just a great throw. To me, I think the emergence of Tim Patrick is important for them. He looked good.
Mm-hmm.
And
looks really good.
Yeah. So he's not going to be a long-term. There's nothing long-term there, or at least I don't think there is. But I see Devontae Adams is available, and all that stuff. But Patrick looks really good, and he looks to have some sort of chemistry with Goff, which is really important. So the Patrick stuff stands out. Laporta getting back involved, the way they did it, but the focus, I think, is going to be, for me at least, is going to be the deeper cross route that they run to JMO, and how quickly that he's gone. And it's essentially after he takes a couple of steps, after maybe even one or two steps after he catches that pass, it's just like he's gone. And it's a little bit, we've been asking the Lions to run that kind of route with him for a while. I'm not saying that's an easy throw, because it was a layered throw. It was a great throw. He hit him in stride. He didn't force him to stop his feet or any of that stuff. And but it's a much easier throw and completion than forcing something 40 yards downfield, where you have to beat a safety. You might have to throw it, you might have to really drop the ball into the bucket, on those deeper throws. But with that, intermediate to deeper crossing route, you hit him on the move, and it's just like, he's so fast. There's nobody that's going to stay with him. And if he catches the ball in stride and moving, it's over, and I think he was high stepping at the 30-yard line going in, so that to me was like, it's so easy for him to score. Was it a 70-yard touchdown?
Yes.
Whatever it was. He makes it look so ridiculous, so easy. And, if that forces a safety to back off just a touch, generally speaking, with, out of that alignment or whatever they do when they do have Jameson running crossing routes like that, that's great because it just opens up bigger parts of the field. So that was on offense. That's what it stood out to me was just how, I don't want to say easy because it's not easy, but you know what I'm saying. Just pitch it, catch it, throw it, you're gone, touchdown, cool.
Yeah, well, because they made it look easy. That's just what it. I mean, and it's a throw that they should have connected on the week before, which is where I almost said Stafford. Goff was looking at J-Mo across the middle of the field, and he checked it down to Brock Wright, and he didn't anticipate J-Mo over the middle of the field. I highlighted that throw on Twitter. I think we talked about it on the show. And it's one of those where you go back to it and you go, they didn't anticipate there. They anticipated here. It leads to the big touchdown. And I mean, when it happened, I was like, and remember the Titans, Gary Bertier, I was just sitting in my bed. I was like, here we go. My arms are out. And I'm like, finally, man.
It's so, it happens so fast. It's like, I remember, you remember the Randy Moss days and some of these home run hitter type players. Jameson is like that. Like he's not going to be Moss, but he doesn't need to be for this offense. He just needs to do what he's done. That he's been a big part of things so far. But in this, I think he had 2 catches for, I don't know, 80 yards, whatever it was. But that was a dagger in that game, and it was a huge moment for their offense. It makes it so tough to defend. And Gibbs looks explosive. He looked electric. We should probably bring up the Montgomery catch where he plants Devin Witherspoon. That's kind of like a tone setter, right? And like, really?
I didn't realize that was a 40-yard pitch and catch. I did not realize that in live time. And I like just what a play by him. And that's the identity of this football team. And people will say, Aiden Hutchenson is a leader. Penei Sewell is a leader of this team. Absolutely, I agree with you. But I think the heart of that football team is David Montgomery, because that team goes the way he goes. If he lowers his shoulder, they all lower their shoulder. They all play tough. But if he gets rocked or he doesn't play right, doesn't really feel like they play right offensively. So I love that he had that pitch and catch in that run. You mentioned the J-Mo stuff. It was great. I'm glad you highlight Tim Patrick because that helps take pressure off of J-Mo and St. Brown and Sam Laporta, having that other option. And we're starting to see Ben Johnson start to get back in his bag a little bit. And it just felt like at any moment on Monday night against Seattle, they could have a very long and substantial drive and put up points at any moment. And I feel like that is going to be the case when they play Dallas. I'm not discrediting Dallas, but they're banged up all over the place. And I'm just going to switch. I'm going to switch gears over to Dallas now, just to kind of preview it, because again, there's not much more we can really talk about with the Lions-Seahawks game. And looking at this game against the Cowboys, they're banged up. The Cowboys are banged up. The Lions are coming out of this bye. They're healthy. And I just wonder, is there just too much for Dallas to take on here with the injuries that they've sustained? Tyler Guyton got hurt. They're starting offensive tackle, their left tackle. I don't know if he's going to play. It sounds like they might get Deron Bland back, but they've got a lot of guys that are hurt on the defensive side, even Micah Parsons. So it's
You're expecting Parsons to miss this game? I know Lawrence is already out, right? So, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't checked the injury report as far as what they've got updated. Bland was a full participant. Parsons did not practice today. Eric Kendricks did not practice today. Marshawn Nealon, he's on injured reserve. Brandon Cooks is on injured reserve. Lawrence is on injured reserve. Jordan Phillips is on injured reserve. I mean, they have so many injuries on the defensive side that it's going to be tough for them to overcome. And I'm interested on how they're going to defend the Lions' rushing attack, because it feels like one of those games where the Lions could run it 40, 45 times and possibly get close to 150, 200 rushing yards. I mean, that's just the way it feels.
Yeah, and I think there's a similar tone to this one as there has been the last 2 weeks. Seattle was without They're starting their starting interior tackles. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily want to defend Dallas's offense, a bunch of times in this matchup. And I know Brandon Cooks is out, but Jalen Tolbert's a good player. I don't know what you thought about him coming out of South Alabama, but I liked him a lot. And I thought that was a really nice destination for what his skill set was. He can be dangerous, right? And Kavonte Turpin's super fast. And there's Ceedee Lamb. You don't want to have to deal with all those guys. Jake Ferguson's a good tight end. Dak is a good quarterback, So if there's a way to take the air out of the ball, so to speak, and reduce possessions, which we're going to talk about a lot, I think it's smart in this matchup just to run the ball and ask these DBs to step up and tackle guys like Montgomery, who, just for a second, Montgomery looks slimmer to me. He looks like a bit of a maybe a toned down version of what he was last year. And my sense is that's a nod at Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs is really good, but I still want to get my carries too. And they give him the first drives, and I want to say I think they scored on their first possession. Well, they didn't score on their first. I don't know where I'm going with this, but point is that Montgomery's still getting his while Gibbs is too. But I think Montgomery looks a little bit thin down and a little a little twitchier, quicker than he did last year. Like last year in his Bears days, he was huge. He's always been difficult to get to the ground, but his ability to bust off bigger plays, like you're mentioning that 40-yard catch, that's all about forcing missed tackles. He probably had 3 or 4 minimum in that catch. So, I like the way he's playing right now. I think that the combo of him and Gibbs is pretty electric. And that's just in the running game. And then you throw in all the other stuff they've got going. And it's just like this, that team is, the Lions are just loaded. They just are.
Yeah.
I think looking around the NFC and seeing how some of these teams are playing, while the Tampa game is going to be a bummer and it's going to be something that I think in the end is not something I hope that costs you like a home playoff game at some point and deep into the playoffs. But still, the Lions are they are a powerhouse of a football team, and I would say they're really young on defense, so they'll get it going. I think we need to talk about Terry and Arnold just a little bit, but obviously Hutchinson's getting tons of pressures. Onwuzurike's playing really well. They need to figure out what's going to happen at edge rusher opposite Hutchinson, but every other game, they're playing great.
Yeah, it's not James Houston playing opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. They might as well trade him for whatever they can get, because I think that experiment's starting to kind of run out a little bit. I think it's ran its course. He can't get on the field, and when he does, he's jumping off sides. He's not doing anything. He's really. You're essentially playing with 10 players.
It makes you wonder how bad. I know the injury was really bad last year when he fractured his leg. I think he fractured his leg, but he doesn't look like he's got. Doesn't look like he's got any juice, and you know what I mean. Like he can't bend. Like he did 2 years. This was 2 years ago when he put up, all his production. He was playing loose and free back then. He looks tight. I don't know if he's overthinking things or if he's. I'm not sure. I'm being totally speculative, but they got to figure out, opposite Hutchinson, what they're going to do.
Right.
And that would be. I don't know when the trade deadline is. It's coming up. It'd be that'd be an interesting move. I know I tweeted a while back about Trey Hendrickson. I still think, as much as if Cincinnati is going to continue to lose, I'm surprised that he's still there.
Right.
I know it's week 6, but still, you're so far behind a team like Baltimore. Pittsburgh's playing pretty well. Cleveland really is not.
Cleveland's hanging around. Yeah, but they hang around. They're hanging around.
Yeah.
So I'm with
Henderson would be perfect, wouldn't he? Like, he would be the perfect kind of player. And there's a little history because he started out with the Saints. So there's some history there with Campbell and Aaron Glenn. So,
right.
I don't know what it would cost. I know that it would free up a bunch of money for the Bengals. But they need a player like that. Somebody to emerge who could kind of squeeze, play run defense, set the edge, and just kind of free up some of the other players. But outside of that, I think the Lions defense is playing great. Even with the penalties that some of these penalties are being called out. Now, I think some of them are, it's not that I want to give Carlton Davis and Terry Arnold a pass, but some of the calls are a little bit like, yeah, you can watch other games and that stuff's being let go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that I know you've seen this, but like they need to put some boxing gloves on Terry and Arnold at practice kind of thing. Like, so he can't grab. He's in good position. He's right where he needs to be. He's just, I don't know if it's a touch panicky, at the catch point or whatever. I don't know what it is in terms of what the mentality is there. And I know you get away with that stuff in college a little more than you do in the NFL, but it really feels like the officials are looking for it, like they want to make those kind of calls. And I think he'll get the benefit of the doubt, as time moves on. But some of these calls are just a little bit like, I don't know what you think about it, but I mean, what do you think? I mean, what do you think of Arnold and some of this stuff?
No, I agree with you. I mean, he plays a physical style of play. It's just the way he is, and he's experienced doing that. And it's just a bad habit. It's a great habit for college, but it's a bad habit for the NFL. And they've got to break that bad habit. But also, the Lions play a physical style of football, offensively and defensively. And when you bring that physicality defensively, you start kind of getting into that groove of punching somebody in the face and grabbing and doing what you need to do. And then the opposition kind of does it back to you, and you obviously retaliate like we've seen Carlton Davis do and Tyron Arnold do, and they're going to get flagged for it. So it was really hard for, I think, the Lions defense to find some type of groove. Whenever it felt like they started to get that groove, the penalties started happening. So I think that's where the issues kind of came up. But the one thing I will say when we look at this game with the Cowboys is, while the Lions, I think, need to definitely figure something out opposite of Aiden Hutchenson as far as a pass rusher goes, they are so well, they do so well against the run. They're so disciplined against the run, and they're playing against one of the worst rushing attacks in football. With the Dallas Cowboys, they only average 82 yards rushing per game. The Lions defense allows far less than that. So I think this could become very one-dimensional for Dak and the Cowboys, and they're already kind of banged up. There's no Brandon Cooks, and you mentioned Jalen Tolbert, and there's Ceedee Lamb, obviously. Those guys are going to do their part. Dak is going to play well at times, but I think if at any point they can force him into some really tough throwing windows and just get some type of pressure on him consistently and really in key areas, I think they're going to be just fine in this game. I will say, defensively for Dallas, they blitz quite a bit on second and medium, third and medium. So, 27.6% they blitz on second and medium. Third and medium, they're blitzing at 36.8%. So we're talking like anywhere between, 5 yards to 8 yards, somewhere in there, maybe 9 yards. So they're going to send some pressure at times. But again, they're so banged up there on that side of the football. It's going to be interesting to see what Dallas does in that regard. I will say they have a linebacker out of Notre Dame that has been playing exceptionally well. And he kind of has been stepping in for Eric Kendricks. And I wouldn't say exceptionally well. He's only got 11 tackles this year, but he played well against the Giants when I watched him, and I thought he played okay against the Steelers in coverage. That's Maris Laifu. I think I'm saying that wrong or correctly, but he's a rookie. They took him in the third round. he's playing pretty well. So he's going to be somebody that we got to keep our eye on, when we're playing Jahmyr Gibbs or Montgomery or even Laporta. But overall, I feel good about this game. It feels like a game that the Lions should win coming out of a bye. And with how physical they play, I feel like when you think of Dan Campbell and you think of last year and this year and just through his tenure, this is a game that he doesn't want to let go. He does not. He's had this one circled. They've had this one circled. They want to get back to Dallas, and they want to take back what was kind of taken from them last year. They should have won that game, and it's one of those where I think similar to the Seattle stuff, right? Like we all thought, we don't know what to expect because Seattle has their number, and Dan Campbell had them ready. They put up 42 points. I feel like it's going to be very similar style of football coming out of a bye week.
I agree, and it's not that I'm comfortable with traveling to Dallas because nobody should be comfortable traveling to Dallas, but with how one-dimensional they are to begin with, Rico Dowdle's a good running back, but they're not necessarily built to run the ball much. I think they want to spread stuff out, get Lamb isolated, and get him lots of targets. But, pressure is a problem for Dak. And if the Lions, I just say this, if the Lions can get pressure with four-man, with four-man pressures, so without having to blitz or do anything exotic, if they can make him a touch uncomfortable and get him to the ground a little bit, this has a chance. I don't even want to say it, but it has a chance to be kind of an uglier game. Like, I would expect the Lions to roll in there, and if they play well, I could see them. I don't want to say throwing Dallas a beating, but there's a possibility. I mean, there's you could write a script in this game, and the Lions could do to Dallas what they did to Seattle, on the road. They could, and there's no reason they can't do that. I mean, I don't, if you're Dallas on defense, what do you want to stop? How are you going to do that? Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to stop the run,
right?
But
and what do you have defensively to stop the run? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know who's going to play for them, and I know they've got talent. I'm not discrediting them at all, and we're not writing them off and saying we're going to walk in and just absolutely smoke them. But when you have the injuries that you've sustained, you've got guys not practicing. You've got certain players that are key players that made an impact last year against us. They're on IR. It's hard to envision what direction this defense is going to go. And then when you're not able to run the football, they weren't great running the football last year, but they were good enough with Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
That's all gone. Zeke, it's very clear Zeke is kind of a one-trick pony, run it downhill, cut, maybe make one guy miss, but it's very limited. He doesn't have that speed that he used to have. We're going to need him to figure it out and take some pressure off of Rico Dowdle, who, like you mentioned, he's a good back, but he's good. He's not great.
Right.
And maybe they're going to make us eat our words here, but I look at Detroit coming out of a bye, having this one circled. I feel so good going into it. And I think if they get Frank Ragnow back, that's only going to do that much more for this offense that they played without him. And we saw them struggle last year when he didn't play.
Yeah.
They played one game without him and they played so well. I mean, Jared Goff had the best game of a quarterback, as far as completions in history. I mean, that's so rare for that to happen.
Yeah. And it's a nod to Ben Johnson too. Like, the recognition of, all right, we lost our center. Glasgow's going to play center. Awosika is going to play left guard, but let's get rid of the ball quickly, right? And some of that is also with the rookie defensive tackle, Byron Murphy, right? I want to say it's Murphy or Young. I can't believe that. And Fletcher Cox was out, so some of it is you're missing pieces. Dallas is now too. So. And then the running game is so explosive, like Gibbs and Montgomery doing their thing, but getting rid of the ball quickly, not allowing pressure to get there. To me, I like Johnson called, I don't want to say a perfect game, but I mean, your quarterback was 18 of 18, right?
Right.
you had Amon-Ra St. Brown throw your quarterback a touchdown pass. You dialed up a play that made a 70-yard touchdown that was super easy looking. I want to say Goff's probably worst throw was the touchdown pass to St. Brown because he was so open and he let him out of bounds, but it was a great catch. So, you recognize just how good Ben Johnson had it going last Monday and 2 Mondays ago, I should say. And at this point, if you walk into Dallas feeling that way, playing that way, I do think that it should line up pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's just it is what it is. I mean, I think this team is gelling at the right time. They kind of had that preseason rust, I guess I would say. A lot of guys didn't play in the preseason, and it was evident in those first 2 weeks. But they're really starting to gel, and they're starting to figure it out. So I can't wait for Sunday. It's a 4:30 kick. It's kind of like that prime time without all the fancy lights, in a sense. That afternoon game is always fun. Yeah. So really looking forward to it. Do you got anything else you want to add to this game or anything like that?
The only thing I would say that might be interesting is have we seen a pick six or anything? I know Kirby Joseph has gotten hits, right?
Yeah,
and that's not a surprise. But we haven't seen like a real big explosive play from their defense.
Yeah.
Outside of the sacks and all the pressures and that kind of stuff. But that's coming. So, this would be a really interesting time for I'm not saying I'm calling this, but I guess I'm going to try to call it. I think Detroit could walk away with the pick six in this game, pressuring Dak and getting him uncomfortable. That'd be a cool thing to see.
I would love to see it from Jack Campbell. I think he's really starting to get into his groove. I thought he played pretty well on Monday night, and I think this could be one of those situations where he plays pretty well again. So, I mean, he's been key. They're going to have to lean on him with the Derek Barnes stuff, who's probably done for the year. So, yeah. I mean, we'll see how it goes. But I'm with you. I hope a big play happens. I hope it's Terrion Arnold too. I mean, I would love to see it. I think
kind of what I'm thinking.
It would boost his confidence tremendously.
Yeah.
And I think it's exactly what that defense needs. So we shall see how this one goes on Sunday. I got nothing left to add. I think you're all set as well.
We're good.
All right. Well, you guys, of course, can find us on Twitter or X at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott. And of course, you can rate, review, and subscribe to Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms. So we will be back next week to put a bow on the Cowboys game. We'll get into the Viking stuff next week. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We are Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast.